When it comes to architecture, the sky is truly becoming the limit. There are currently 4 mega-tall buildings in the world, which measure at least 600 meters, about 2,000 feet. Skyscrapers have typically been office buildings, but now many are being offered as homes, bringing new challenges for builders. At 1,550 feet, the just-completed Central Park Tower is the tallest residential building in the world, with some of its 179 apartments reaching more than a quarter mile into the air. Brook Silva-Braga got an exclusive first look at what's at the top.
All right.
This is it.
Welcome to the penthouse.
How high are we?
We're roughly at 1,400 feet high.
The penthouse in Central Park Tower is now the highest residence on Earth.
So this is what we call the observatory for a reason.
Okay. So every room's an observatory.
Its asking price is also in the clouds, $250 million.
So it's 3 stories. How many square feet?
This apartment is 17,500 square feet.
That's big.
7 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, 2 kitchens, private terrace.
We're legit looking down on the Empire State Building.
You're actually looking down.
Joaquin Stearns works for Excel Development, the tower's builder.
It cost about $3 billion to make this place?
Yes, if you include the land, correct.
Will it turn a profit?
Yes, let's hope so.
Stearns spent nearly a decade building the tower and the last month staging the penthouse. Now he's looking for a billionaire who sees height as the ultimate form of beauty.
This is no different than an art piece. Whether it's a collectible or a piece of art, you're going to pay whatever you're willing to pay for something if it's meant for you.
If this sculpture in the sky counts as art, what makes it possible is engineering.
If you want to see really where the magic happens, you have to go through behind the scenes, right?
We are behind the scenes.
Skyscrapers can be unpleasant to live in because they naturally sway in the wind.
Oh, here we are.
So just below the roof, builders hung this 1,200-ton weight called a tuned mass damper.
To counteract the movement of the building.
How does it know how to move?
So it's a passive system, meaning that it's like a pendulum. So if the building is moving a little bit one side, the pendulum moves into the other direction.
The design for the world's tallest residential building,
this was an early study model,
came from architects Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill.
This could become the signature of the building.
They've done this sort of thing before.
How often does someone come in and just say, can you build me the world's tallest building?
I think we've had that about 8 or 9 times.
Smith designed Dubai's Burj Khalifa. At more than 2,700 feet, it is the tallest building in the world. And together, Smith and Gill created Jeddah Tower, set to shatter that record until construction was halted in 2018 by the Saudi Arabian political purge.
Do you think it's going to get finished?
Yes.
If it does, the tower will rise a staggering 3,300 feet.
But everyone wants to know, how high can we go?
You know, today we might be able to go to a mile high, but we don't know yet.
Is it a short list of things that worry you about going that high, or it's like 12 things you got to deal with?
It's the unknowns that worry me.
Temperature shifts at the height from the ground plane to the top of the building. It expands and contracts differently. Wind behavior characteristics.
That's a big thing, right? The wind.
Huge.
How much can it sway before it starts to be a problem?
In an office building, it's a little more forgiving than it is in a residential building. If you have a swimming pool or a bathtub full of water, the psychology around watching that move is a little different.
Yeah.
Computer modeling has helped.
And so this is put into a huge wind tunnel.
This is a mock-up of the kilometer-high Jeddah Tower.
And so what you're looking at is how to move that wind around the body. You look at little subtle things in these balconies in the body of the building, for example. That's to help kind of confuse the wind.
For most of the 20th century, only 2 buildings in the world rose above 1,000 feet, the Empire State and Chrysler buildings. Today, there are more than 100.
Why so many now?
First of all, we have the technology to build higher, concrete that's stronger. We have better pumps to push the concrete up. Elevators go much faster than they used to.
In his book, Super Tall, architect Stefan Al traces the history of the skyscraper.
This building kind of took it to the next level.
Explaining how zoning laws often drove design.
Buildings could no longer go straight up.
One era's rules forcing narrow tops, the next yielding tall boxes next to open plazas. Now, residential skyscrapers are on the rise, along with some concerns.
We've already had a lot of reports of problems of, for instance, trash chutes. When you open them, they sound like an exploding bomb, or that people get stuck in elevators for too long when the tower sways too much.
We spent parts of 2 days at the top of Central Park Tower, one of them quite windy, and never felt the building sway. But with outdoor temperatures just above freezing, opening and closing the terrace door
Watch out, I don't want you to get...
was a bit of a hazard.
Wow.
Be careful. Oh.
And there was this high-pitched sound ringing out when we entered the penthouse.
We hear this sound right now. This must be one of these you didn't know until you built it type situations?
No, this actually happens to be a normal kind of, we call it a growing pain. If we have a window open, you might hear that on a very, very cold day.
But some buyers may not care or even know what it's like to live here. Luxury real estate is often used by the world's rich to park money, because unlike other investments, the purchases can be made anonymously. Critics also complain the tower casts new shadows deep into Central Park's main recreation areas, all to benefit a building that nearly 2 years after it started selling units has fewer than 30 full-time residents.
I want to tie it all into like one thing that I want you to respond to. Why should resources in real estate be used in a building for the 0.01%? Why is this a good use of a scarce resource?
Regardless of who the end user is, you're creating additional housing, you're bringing jobs, you're bringing tax revenue. Yes, a buyer group that may be considered a certain level, but that group is not necessarily taking on all the resources of the infrastructure of this city.
Using hardly any of them because they aren't here.
But in return, we're bringing a lot of revenue to the city.
The tallest buildings have rarely been the most popular, at least at first.
Are you afraid of heights?
Not yet.
Just don't look down.
They've risen because tenacious developers and daring architects
My goodness.
pushed higher than the skeptics thought wise.
If my math is right, this is the highest place you can stand outside Asia.
I think you're about right.
1,550 feet above New York, you can't help but notice how rare that still is. For CBS Saturday Morning, Brook Silva-Braga, New York.
Superficial statement, man, what a view.
Could you imagine standing up on
I
top
know,
there and just
yeah.
looking over? I mean,
What would be nice if all those billionaires would just open up their apartments to all the people who need a place to live. Affordable housing. We need more of that.